o'clock on the p.m. Eastern Standard Time out of Detroit, Michigan. Today's date is September the 22nd, and we have a pretty interesting show. I have a couple of topics I would like to deal with, but I think I'm going to stay with my original topic in the beginning, which is a discussion of privatization. Privatization. We need to know more about privatization. Okay? Now, a lot of us, I don't know if I can say we know what privatization is. I don't really know what your views are because I haven't heard any one of our so-called political pundits, you know, them civil rights all-stars and them jack-leg-ass preachers. I haven't heard any of them have any comment one way or the other. I don't know, they are, is it the horse pulling the cart or the cart pushing the horse? I don't know. But I think we should take a look at it. What they're doing to us is very, very, very similar to what happened to our ancestors. And when I say ancestors, I'm talking about our Native Americans. I'm talking about our ancient ones. You know, they didn't take this battle of this land by giving out flowers and nuns and ribbons and whiskey. No. There were bloody wars fighting the European to keep him out. That's the history that we need to know about. That's the unwritten history. If you are near a computer, you can look up Gullah Wars, Gullah, Gullah Wars. Sometimes they're called the Seminole Wars. You need to look that up and just read and stay with the dates of it. There were bloody battles all across America from approximately 1739 all the way up to 1858. We're talking about 100 years plus. The Gullah Wars. Okay? After the Gullah Wars, there was what the European called the Civil War. That's when he, along with his conniving treaties, contracts, and agreements, took some particular Native Americans plus Moors to fight again each other and fight the southern states, or what we know as the Confederation. The Confederation won the Gullah Wars. Those were the Seminoles coming out of Florida, uniting with Black America. And what they really did, they united and attacked the Union, so-called Union Army, united with undesirables, and attacked the victors who were wounded from fighting the wars for 100 years. Most of the wars, maybe I should say it better, most of the wars that I'm talking about, that Gullah Wars, most of them were fought black on black. But anytime the European was in the way, he was attacked. The European was definitely attacked, and he was whooped. Most of your stories, such as the one out of Louisiana, starring Yul Brynner. What do they call that movie? I'm looking at Latif. His name was Latif, a pirate. Those wars that they talked about then, those were black Moors fighting those wars. And they were fighting the Union Army, who was trying to expand, take land, and territory. Now, these dates, if you look at them carefully, you'll see. I gave you the best date, and that was 1739 until 1858. Well, of course, the so-called Indian Removal Act by Thomas Jefferson was signed around the 1800s. The Trail of Tears was set up with that removal, plus the Louisiana Purchase. A lot of things were happening while the blacks were fighting each other in the Gullah Wars, trying to set up this government. The European was trying to use the weak spots in order to take over certain lands and territories. That's why once he realized that he could not legally own anything in America, he can't do it today. He cannot own anything in America, the government of the United States. Now, Europeans can own it as in a private capacity, but the government that you know of, United States of America, Inc., cannot own any land, territory, resources in the United States. Cannot. And if you want to look, I'll give you where to go. I hear you saying, Ron, you're talking out the side of your neck. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to look up the Henry Turner Ayers Supreme Court ruling of 1848, July 19th, 1848. And I believe the Supreme Court number was 191. Number, I believe. I'm not sure about the case number. But there were approximately 3 or 4 huge case wars during that period of time. Case law. The European lost every one of them. And it went further to say it could never own any land in the United States. And for all you historical buffs that pay attention to history, I know you're out there. I wonder if you heard so-called a Republican president candidate, Huckabee, when he was down in Kentucky trying to campaign over the freeing of that Kim Davis, that hillbilly female who was the commissioner of Register of Deeds, who refused to sign the marriage license for same-sex marriage. If you didn't, you need to go online or go on YouTube and pull it up and listen to his speech he made when he mentioned what they are doing, what they did to Kim Davis was a reversal of what they did to Dred Scott. They know our history. Those types of persons that run for those offices, they have our history down pat. No one questioned him as to how in the hell can that damn hillbilly, by refusing to sign the marriage license for same-sex marriage, what did that have to do? What was the relationship with Dred Scott? Well, I'm going to tell you what the relationship was. The same way no law in America, or better yet, no law in the United States can pass without the people's agreement. The people have to vote to change laws. The Supreme Court is only there to interpret laws, not to create laws. That's why you send representatives to Washington, D.C. Now, I'm not going to get into where I am on that, but I'm just telling you how the structure was set up in the beginning when they were instructed to set up a seat of government for America, and it would be called the United States for America. That's what it was set up for. And what they did, they took out FOR and added OF. Nobody ever talks about that. United States for America is in the Constitution. They even tampered with the original Constitution, and you don't even see it in the original Constitution. They even have that's why I like when Jonah said, when they start tampering with contracts, you can call those contracts after they've tampered with them, you can call them what they really are. They are municipal contracts. Because you don't speak Arabic, nor do I. But I know from honest interpretations from that Avalon college or that Avalon law school that it was originally set up for United States for. I'm going to put that in right now. United States for America. And we're going to see what that leads us to. Okay? I type so hard that everything starts coming up. United, I got to type light. States for America. There you go. United States for America. Okay. Now they say United States of America, USA, commonly referred to as the United States. I didn't ask for that. I put in United States for America. And it seems like they don't want me to. There we go. Here's United States for America, the image, and how it was originally set up. Images. I thought I would get much more than this. But they keep putting in OF. They keep putting in OF. It should be. Here's a copy of the Constitution, discovered facts. Maybe it will be in there. United States, they keep saying of America. We the people, we get a copy. Yep, they keep pushing of America. They don't really want you to know that it's the original Constitution talks about United States for, F-O-R, America. Okay. Well, the point I'm trying to get across is simple. That is, since we did not want them as a nation, as a continent of El Morocco, we never wanted the European here. Never. Those East Coast Moors signed those contracts and helped those persons set up what we know today as the 13 colonies. We had nothing to do with that across America. Okay? Or better yet, across I'm still looking for something more on the full text. I'm still trying to find something more talking about United States for America. I didn't know I'd get into it. Me and my big mouth always come up with something that I don't have. Okay. States, as we know it today, is a very huge place. Okay, here we listen to this. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessing of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That's where I'm missing it. The Constitution is the Constitution for the United States of America. They broke it down. They left out the Constitution. They just called it United States of America. Well, they knew they couldn't continue with that. So 100 years later, they made United States of America become United States of America, Inc. There you go. That's how it was done. Okay, I'll say it again. We're talking in the preamble. It says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this contract, quote unquote, Constitution for the United States of America. We establish this Constitution for the United States of America. I got to remember that. That's how they did it. So as they begin to tamper, because their intent was bad from the beginning, when they came over to set up a colony, set up a plantation to enslave all of the northern hemisphere, which would be Canada, Alaska, North America, South America, Central America. They did all that. That was their intent, because they had swept through Europe and parts of Africa, and they wanted to set up more treasures and domain for the kings and the queens and the girls and the boys and the sissies and whatever the case was. All right? So, what they had to do was come over here in the name of peace and establish a continent on this continent, establish on this continent land where they could set up what we know today as United States of America, Inc. That was all in the process from the beginning. All right. Now, what happened was real simple. They ran into opposition. Now, you know, we didn't have at the time, there was no telephones and televisions and all the things that you would need to get the word out. And the organization of these tribes across America was not nowhere near what you would consider to be united. So the war itself was just on the East Coast. They came in through Plymouth, Pennsylvania area in so-called 1492, then and set it up, made the arrangements, and then they came back during 1709, I believe it was. But the first colony was set up in 1604, which was the Pennsylvania colony or the Plymouth colony? I think it was Pennsylvania colony. The first one was set up, and it didn't last. You need to read the history on those colonies. It didn't last because nobody wanted them here. It was against our religion, our spirit, and our culture to even mix with them. We had everything we needed. We didn't need them for a damn thing. And their idea was to come in and take, and that's what they did. They came in and took it, everything they needed. They lost a lot, but they kept sending them over here. They kept coming. Now, when they got into, some of the Moors began to capture the Europeans and vice versa. But they captured the Europeans and put them in slavery. The first slaves in America were Europeans, Peckerwood, first ones. And upon doing that, they put them on the market. They found that the women, would bring better prices. You can imagine. Well, from that, which is known, Bobby L. taught us, they call it miscegenation. During that sex trade of all of those wealthy Moors who could afford to fight and get those women, they begin to fight over them, put them on the market and sell them. Okay? Well, the Algonquin Moors, or the Algonquin tribe, which was a huge confederation that came out of the New York, that was in the area where these 13 colonies were, especially down south in the North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia. All of that was Iroquois, Algonquin territory. They was telling the master tribe of this, let's call it the master tribe of the Midwest. They were telling them, we don't want them people over here, and you got to stop dealing with them. Well, that broke out in a fight. And we can start with the date when they began to fight each other to stop it, 1738 and 39. 1738 and 39. And it was big. It was huge. This was the era of Acapulco. He was the heavyweight that founded the so-called Iroquois Confederation, which was a unit of Powhatan Confederation and Algonquin Confederation. And then it broke up and began to fight each other. And that is a beautiful history to learn, because you'll understand why we fight today. Because we don't belong to the same tribes. Never did. Our cultures are different. You may live across the street. You may marry one. Today they use the color line. You marry an individual, you don't know who she is, or vice versa. She don't know who you are. You got certain ways of living. She has certain ways of living. And it doesn't mix in most cases. That's why the divorce rate is so high. We don't get along with each other because of our culture, and our traits are much different. If we understood that, it would be something that we could work with. But we don't even realize that. They done taught us that we all are black, we all are niggas, we all are Afro-Americans, colored, and all of that. And we fall for it every time. So, what we're going to do, we're going to move on to the wars. Noble Drew Ali, that was born in 1884 in the Carolina. That South Carolina is a very rich area for Moors. You're going to hear more about it now that the Pope is here. And for those that never heard it, the killing that they had at the church was not a random racist killing. It was a calculated hit on that preacher. That's why the boys sit and waited so long for the preacher. They try to make you think they were talking to the preacher. No. He come in and asked for the preacher. Preacher wasn't there, so he sat down and waited. Somebody was supposed to go get him. None of that has been brought out. I don't know when it will come out, but the way it was told to me makes more sense than what they put in the paper. His job, the Roof, Peckerwood, Klansmen, and all this so-called hatred, crime that they use as a cover, his job was to kill the preacher. Why kill the preacher? Because the preacher was a powerful senator or a congressman in the Senate of South Carolina and was prepared to submit a bill to take the land away from the South Carolinians. There you go. And give it to the Moors. Do your research. You ain't got to believe me. I don't care. But we can't keep listening to these lies that they put on the radio. You know they lies. Television. They don't bit more know what's going. They're dumber than a doornail. Those ones that bring you the news are dumb as hell. That's why they got those jobs. And they're told what to say. They got education. They speak good English, if that makes you feel any better. But knowledge, education, and intellect, as to what's going on, they have no idea. None. So, the bottom line was to attack with the Civil War, as you were taught. That started in the timetable was 1862 to start the Civil War. That went all the way to 1865. Okay? Now remember that the country had been at war with each other for 100 years. It's like attacking the Middle East when they went in there to Saddam Hussein. That wasn't a big deal to go in and whip them people. You see now how many different tribes were in the country. They had been fighting each other for hundreds of years. We were doing the same thing. Yes, we were doing the same thing. We're doing it today. We just stupid and idiots, don't know why we're doing it. Get drunk, full of that firewater, and start cutting and shooting and carrying on. Every time you hear of a killing, and once you get into the details, you say, Lord, have mercy, help us. Yeah, somebody should. But it don't make sense what we do to each other because we don't know. We just angry and upset. So, what we got to do is look at the history. That's where you're going to find out where we are, where we're going, and what it's all about. Now, I'm going to move faster because I just decided to merge both of these ideas that I have. I'm going to put them both together. It's going to take a minute for me to get there. Now we are talking about nothing more than the Gullah Wars and the fighting in America among each other. That's what I'm talking about. Okay? Now, the real war that ended slavery, otherwise known as the Seminole Wars or the 100-Year Wars, was known as the Gullah Wars. Now, they have taught us that there were some slave rebellions, and they called them slave rebellions. They wasn't slave rebellions. I'm not talking about slave rebellion, okay? I'm talking about out-and-out wars to get that European off the land. Not any big black military resistance, not even any slaves with freedom fled north to be granted freedom. These are the lies they teach you in school. You want to hear them again? Number one, they say there was, I see what they did. Number one, they say that there was some slave rebellions. Number two, there were not any big resistance against slavery. No big military resistance against slavery. That's a damn lie. Believe me when I tell you that's a damn lie. If you think I'm lying, just look up Gullah Wars. You ain't got to take my word for it. Okay? And then number three would be any slave who wanted to be free, as if there was a route to freedom. That's when they brought in the lady, what's her name? Whatever, I don't know. Underground Railroad bullshit, when they brought that in. Any slave who wanted freedom, all he had to do was go north, and he would be granted freedom. All of that was just hogwash. Nothing like that ever happened. None of that ever existed. You wasn't allowed to travel into different territories if you didn't belong to that tribe. The American Civil War was a primary event that ended slavery. That's another lie. The Gullah Wars were a series of battles, revolts, and rebellions led by the so-called Seminoles. The Seminoles are not a real Native American tribe. The Seminoles were the Gullah Geechee, black Africans, Gullah, black Africans, whom allied with the First Nation, which would be the Native Americans. Seminoles equal the runaway, maroon, the color of the of the Seminole mascot, Maroon, the fugitive, the Gullah, the black Africans. The very word Gullah derives from the word Gullah, gutter. The very word gutter, Gutta, derived from the word Gullah, means African or black. Sentence: he is a Gullah ass nigga. That was some of the slang. Guttaassnigga, nigga. And don't forget, nigga is a God name. It's not that negative crap that they made it out to be. The Emancipation Proclamation was a staged event to hide the Gullah agenda for self-liberation. They had already won their freedom. They had already been emancipated. But revisionary history created the vision of the revisionism that the Gullah Wars were. That the Emancipation Proclamation was all this garbage, and we have nerve to celebrate it. That ain't got nothing to do with us. The Africans whom were shipped here from Africa were forced into Anglo-Saxon New World Order, but in the process banded together in efforts to kill, crush, and destroy white supremacy. So they're saying that those Africans that were brought here, now keep in mind, we were here all the time, but there were some slaves, so-called, quote unquote, brought here on ships. And let's read that again. Emancipation Proclamation was a staged event to hide the Gullah Wars agenda, because they wanted self-liberation. They didn't want, you can't be liberated by someone else. You can only be liberated by yourself. You out there listening, crying every day about you got a problem. The only problem is you won't get up and declare that you're free. There's nothing holding you back. Africans whom were shipped here from Africa were forced into Anglo-Saxon New World Order, but in the process banded together in efforts to kill, crush, destroy white supremacy. That's the enemy, white supremacy. South Carolina was about to pass the Security Act, requiring white settlers to acquire more guns and more ammunition to prevent slave uprising. 20 slaves went to the local stores, stocked up on guns and ammo. They killed the storekeeper and began a Stano rebellion. Stano rebellion. S-T-O-N-O. Stono. The slaves started marching, and others started marching, and others joined them as they cried liberty, killing white slave owners and their families, and destroying their properties and settlements. Afterwards, South Carolina passed the Negro Act, refuting their rights of slavery in the Carolinas. At this time, Spain was at war with America for lands in Florida. Now, you need to get an early map if you really want to get the vision of what I'm talking about. You can look up early maps of America, and you'll see that Spain, all the countries on earth that you know of, were started in America. That's why when they talk about Ponce de Leon down there in the Fountain of Youth and all them Spanish names, and across the bottom of across the border coastline of the Gulf of Mexico, all that's Spanish because Spain was here in the beginning, and United States trying to create this new world order wanted all the flags off the continent. And they used them Eastern Negro niggers, known as the Days of the Moors, to fight and help them set up the government that you're in today, was set up by the Days. And we talk about John Hanson, the first black president. He was the one that came up with several innovating ideas, and one was all flags had to leave the continent of North America. Only one flag was to remain, and that was the so-called American war flag, stars and stripes. War flag. We'll talk about that a little later. The Spanish armed the Gullah and provided the Gullah with military training to defend their independent and free African towns. The first black town in North America was called Garcia Rio de Santa Teresa de Muso, which meant real town of Saint Teresa of Moses. It was recognized by the Spanish under the Spanish Lieutenant General Montillo in 1738. This place was free for the Gullahs to have land and receive military training. Andrew Jackson defeated, keep track of the dates, Andrew Jackson defeated the American Creek Federation, the Native American Creek Federation. That's one of the lies they told, and posed to the North Americans the Treaty of Fort Jackson that stole the Indians of Native American land. So Chief Sakafuka led thousands of his troops to Florida and allied with Gullah Nation. See, we were uniting with each other because the European never kept his word. General Thomas Jessup, I saw that name before, stated, throughout my observations, I found that the Negro, the active and determined warrior, and during the conference with the Indian chief, I ascertained that they exercise an almost controlling influence over them. This, you may be assured, is a Negro and not an American. This, you may be assured, is a Negro and not an American war Negro, and not an Indian war Negro. These were black boys who was kicking butt and taking names at this Negro fort. They called it Negro Fort. Negro Fort was constructed by the British, but was ran and operated by the Gullah. Andrew Jackson ordered Colonel Clinch to destroy Negro Fort. Y'all can look that up right now. Negro Fort. Come on here. Damn, Negro Fort. Here we go. All right, told them to destroy Negro Fort. Where we at? After destroying the fort, Andrew Jackson ordered the capture and torture of the Gullah leaders, enslavement of the black captives. And this began the turning point of Gullah military strategy. The Gullah leaders that escaped vowed to never use the British fighting strategy of centralizing warfare again. Instead, they decided to use the old traditional strategy of guerrilla warfare, which meant luring the enemy into strange areas and ambushing the enemy. Because that fort, fighting in a fort, was what the Europeans wanted them to do. That's why they're catching hell right now over in the Middle East, because their combatants, that the people that they're fighting, do not fight the same war that the United States fights. Because the United States has too much power. So why would you want to fight them at their strength? Okay? Instead, they used the old traditional guerrilla warfare, which meant luring the enemy into strange areas and ambushing the enemy. The forests, the fields, the swamps became because the Gullah had advantage since they knew the land better. This is called decentralized warfare. The lands along the Swanee River were occupied by both the Gullah and Native American colonies. Andrew Jackson went to these settlements in hopes of terrorizing and invading these colonists. The Gullah and the Native American warriors took to the swamps where they inflicted heavy damage to Andrew Jackson's troops. Andrew Jackson and his troops were defeated by the Gullah. That's what I told you earlier. But Andrew Jackson falsely claimed it to be a victory. That's what they did with the history books. While the Gullah and Native American warriors were fighting in the swamp, Andrew Jackson and the remaining troops went to the Gullah settlement and killed the women and children. Oh, that's so brave. This was the only victory Andrew Jackson won in the battles of the Swanee River, killing the women and children. The killing of women and children of the Gullah, the resistance had grown completely out of control of the United States government. Charleston, South Carolina, most of the South, almost all of the slaves joined and became active in massive slave revolt. What the whites did not consider was every time they captured and enslaved a free Gullah warrior, the free Gullah warrior would go back to the plantation to spread their knowledge of the resistance to the new slaves. Gullah Jack was an enslaved veteran of the Gullah War. He spread his own knowledge of the Gullah Wars to the DeMarc Vesey conspiracy. DeMarc Vesey. Where did you hear that name last? In the church in South Carolina. The church was built and rebuilt by blacks from the Gullah Wars, and DeMarc Vesey used that church for strategy. That's why they burned it every time they had a chance. They, meaning the European, anytime they captured that area and that territory, they would kill them. They would burn the church because they were having meetings in there. The rebellion was to be spreaded by DeMarc Vesey and Lieutenant Poyas. 9,000 slaves were planning to revolt until cowardly slaves went back to the Peckerwood and told them that these revolts and slaves were either these slaves and revolts were either executed or sold to other plantations. Otherwise known as the victory over the King Fort Relief. The victory was recorded as a massacre and not a battle, was to hide the fact that this was a legitimate military victory for the Gullah. This was another defeat for the white settlers. This battle forced General Gaines and his troops to leave Florida. They ran them out of Florida. History can be written any way they want. All they need is time and control of your children, control of the books, control of the schools. Colonel Taylor claimed this battle as a victory for the United States when it was the Gullah warriors, the Native Americans, whom already fled from Florida to spread the Gullah resistance to other parts of America. Slavery ended because free black men were fighting for their freedom, and the whites could solidify slavery, therefore making the end of slavery to be illegal to stop the attacks from the Gullah. The war that truly ended chattel slavery were the Gullah Wars. Now, all of this was done prior to the so-called Civil War. Now, they use the Civil War in books, and they use the word battle, which is a court definition of a battle in court, in order to attempt to take the land that the Europeans were trying to, that wanted. They wanted the land and the plantations. The bottom line, they couldn't get it. So what did they do? They set up what we know today as Ku Klux Klan. Let me do it better. They set up what we call today Reconstruction era. And then they use that word Reconstruction era to color it with all positive aspects of their make-believe Civil War. But at the same time, what they really did was use the Ku Klux Klan, Jim Crow, the other one, Jim Crow, all of the white supremacy. They just turned it loose on the South. And Lincoln, with the troops that he had, the Union soldiers, went south, and anyone that resisted the Union or the Republic, known as Washington, D.C., they destroyed their lands and burnt their crops. They even reinstituted what we know today, and probably none of you ever read it, the Christian Black Codes of 1724, March of 1724. Now, I'm not going to read all of these, but if I look at it, there were 54. There were 54 articles in the so-called Black Codes. These Black Codes were instituted as they took land as they in 1604 from the beginning of the so-called 13 colonies. They had to set up guidelines for the blacks that were there. You know, they never talked about all these blackies that came in on ships and stuff like that. But they had to use a situation. This is 1724. They set up the Black Code. Decrees expulsion of the Jew from the colony. They wanted the Jew to get out of the colony. They didn't want to mix the Jew and the blacks. Make it imperative on masters to impart religious instructions to their slaves. Permit the exercise of the Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. Don't forget, the Pope is here now. All of this is connected, ladies and gentlemen. I gotta know they're gonna have niggas in the street. Oh, help me, somebody. Negroes placed under the direction or supervision of any other person other than Catholic are liable to confiscation. So he was only allowed to lease out or give direction or supervise your slaves had to be done by a Catholic. Sunday and holidays are to be strictly observed. All Negroes found at work on these days are not to be confiscated. We forbid all white subjects of both sexes to marry with the blacks, under penalty of being fined and subjected to some other arbitrary punishment. We forbid all chorates, priests, or missionaries of our secular or regular clergy, and even chaplains in our Navy to sanction these marriages. We also forbid all our white subjects and even the manumitted or free-born blacks to live in a state of concubine with slaves. Now you're talking about that brown bag test. Now you're talking about the mulatto. He was not allowed to mix with the slave. The only way they could identify a slave was through color. Should there be any issue from the kind of so offending, and the master of the slave shall pay each fine of $300. I'm going to skip and go on down. Y'all can look this up. You ain't got to believe me. It's only 6 pages. Article 7, the ceremony and form prescribed by the ordinance of Bluis. I saw it. That was the one that signed this thing. And by the edit of 1691, for marriage shall be observed both with regard to free persons and slaves. But the consent of the father and mother of the slave is not necessary. That the master shall be the only on required. We forbid the curate to process or effort marriage between slaves without the proof of the consent of the master. And we also forbid all masters to force their slaves into marriage against their will. Then they talk about children. That's where you get probate comes in. Children issued from the marriage of slaves shall follow the condition of their parents and shall belong to the master of the wife and not of the husband. If the husband and wife have different masters. If the husband be a free woman, it is our will that their children, of whatever sex they may be, shall share the condition of their mother. That's the culture in our country where Big Mama come in. And be as free as she, notwithstanding the servitude of their father. And if the father be free and the mother a slave, then the children shall be slaves. They held their Christian slaves buried in consecrated ground. That was number 12. I'm going to skip down to 16, 17, and 18. It's all one sentence. Provide at length for the clothing of slaves. You should provide at length for the clothing of slaves and their substance. You got to feed them, take care of them. These are what you call black codes. Article 33, slaves who shall have made themselves liable to a penalty of the whip, the flower de luce brand. That's a type of whipping on you. And ear cutting shall be tried in the last resort by the ordinary judges of the inferior court, and shall undergo the sentence passed upon them without there being an appeal to the superior council. In confirmation or refusal of judgment, notwithstanding the Article 26 of the preceding or present code, which shall be applicable only to the judgment in which the slave convicted is sentenced to be hamstrung or to suffer death. Man, oh man. 35. We permit our subjects in this colony who may have slaves concealed in any place whatever to have them sought after by such persons and in such a way as they deem proper, so to proceed themselves to such research as they may think best. This is why they never ruled out slavery in America, because Article 4, is it Article 4? Article 4 that deals with full faith and credit. Section 1 deals with full faith and credit, but Section 2 deals with runaway convicts. So once they call you a slave, you're a convict. It's another word for a slave. And if you walk off the plantation, you become a fugitive. And they have a right. We permit our subjects in this colony who may have slaves concealed in any place whatever to have them sought after by such persons and in such a way as they deem proper. Come after you do what they want. So to proceed themselves to such research as they may think best. See, we got all these educated blacks, these so-called Negro pundits that know so damn much. And nobody talks about the conditions of the rank and file. And then all they can do is protest and or let's call it agitate and support the news media when they come out with these statistics that crime is so high in the black community. They create crime in the black community. We forbid all officers of Supreme Council and all our other officers of the justice in the colony to take any fees. We don't need it. They're going to steal any way they can. Article 41 and 42 are entirely relative to judicial forms and proceedings. 45, 46, 47, 48, 49 are relative to certain formalities to be observed in judicial proceedings. Master, when 25 years old, shall have the power to manumit their slaves, either by testimony, depositions, or as act inter vice, but as there may be mercenary masters disposed to set a price on the liberation of their slaves. 51, yeah, we get to the end. 51, however, shall slaves be appointed by their masters tutor to their children, said slaves shall be held and regarded as being set free to all intent and purposes. The last one says, we grant manumitted slaves the same rights, privileges, and immunities which are enjoyed by freeborn persons. It is our pleasure that their merit in having acquired their freedom shall produce in their favor, not only with regards to their person, but also in their property, and same efforts which our other subjects all of these laws have been turned into, and we're talking about black codes, we're talking about Jim Crow, we're talking about Ku Klux Klan. They've all been turned into what Bobby L. called, through institutionalized racism, they've all been turned into city ordinances. And they're heavier in some areas than they are in other areas. The black man in America has a different degree of intelligence and education. I read a couple of incidents today on Ferguson. I hate to pass judgment, but those people that live down there in that Ferguson, Missouri, I don't know how they could even live down there without, I don't know, running away or whatever. The institutionalized racism and white supremacy that's been in that community for years, hundreds of years, is too much to bear. You need to read some of that stuff. They had 3 cases. A man was playing basketball and sitting in his car. the cop came by and gave him a ticket for sitting at the park and looking at young kids. He called him a pedophile. That's why he was there. That's the reason that he stopped. Then he asked for a driver's license. He said he didn't have driver's license, so he got 2 tickets. One for expired license that he didn't have, and then one for license that he didn't have. Another ticket. He got about 5 tickets sitting there. Now he worked for the government, United States government. He couldn't pay the tickets, so they put him in jail. And he lost his job. He had a family and the whole shebang. I know. It don't. If it's not personal and not you, it doesn't hit. But I'm looking at the overall process of what's going on. It hasn't changed. Everything's still here. Because now we're going to go into privatization. I'd like to get feedback on what we got room for a caller here. I'd like to know what you think about what we've discussed thus far. We got a caller.
But it seems to me like any time that we sat there and talked, especially recently, it always leads to an area that I don't want it to go in. It shouldn't be in. Because you got questions and you want fucking answers. Or you got something smart ass to say about some other guy you used to fuck with or talk to.
Wait, honestly, too.
Can I have some order out there?
Even though I'm a experienced, I just like.
That's a private phone. That was a private phone call. She got this station. I'll open it up again. Listen to this.
Unless if they say the shit to me, then I go off. But he seemed like a nice dude. I don't have a reason to hate him or anything. So I apologize for like the little remarks. I'm pretty sure he probably wouldn't hurt him because it's just words, but it's still disrespectful. And he has done anything wrong. I do appreciate that. If he is going to be getting some, at least he can grab some milk and some stuff. So, what I'm saying is at least.
I don't know what that is. So I thought we had a caller. The button is pushed, but I don't hear it. I don't know what the Samuel they talking about. Okay. And it looks like it just started. Yep, just started moving. So anyway, we ain't worried about it. So with all I've said thus far, we're getting ready to move into privatization. But we're at the top of the hour. So let's pay a little bit to the station identification. Somebody's line is open. I know who that is. Andre.
Yo.
Okay. I was just calling. I was going to talk about privatization, and I wanted.
Yes.
I just wanted you to take a good listen to this. The definition.
I'm with you.
I did.
I'm with you. I'm going to ride out with you on this. Yeah.
All right. Well, the first definition I have is a transfer of ownership, property, or business from the government to the private sector is termed privatization. The next definition, the transfer of ownership, property, or business from the government to the private sector is termed privatization. The government ceased to be the owner of the entity or business. Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
right.
I know that all corporations belong to United States of America, Inc.
Correct.
All corporations, especially the municipalities. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then we also know that that United States of America, Inc. was founded by a archbishop by the name of Derek MacLeod, who used the Queen of England, the seat of the royal queen, and the Vatican of the Pope as the two trustees of United States of America, Inc. You got it?
Yep.
So now,
that's correct.
All right, yes. So now, my whole presentation has been to the fact that they have been taking away from us every opportunity to own us. They have shut down all avenues of self-determination. Now, once they started and ended their so-called Reconstruction era, when they was hanging black folks, any opposition, any, let me call them uppity black, or any black of any intelligence along the economic lines, they set up what was known as, quote unquote, race riots.
Yep.
Now, you follow me, okay. Now, United States history is loaded with rebellions all across America, coming from 1865 all the way up to 2015. We just had the latest few out of Baltimore and down there. Now, one thing they all have in common is destroy the economic vein of the communities.
Yep.
We always lose. We always lose our economic base. And the news media, being a part of this conspiracy to destroy black determination, will always print stories that they're burning down their own homes, they're burning down their hospitals. I can still hear the story of them burning down the CVS in Baltimore. Seniors didn't have any place to go. And then all of a sudden, across town, in another neighborhood where there was a huge black church who had a pharmacy in the church, somebody set the church on fire. They didn't do much talking about that. You recall that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now,
I recall a lot of the times it was the police that were doing it, that were in plain clothes. Because we had a lot of accounts, and there was a lot of different blog talk shows that I listened to where they were talking to people that were in that area at the time. They said what the news is reporting and what's really happening is two different things, which we know that's what it is. And we had a lot of the police. I think it was you that talked about how they left all the police cars lined up with nobody protecting them.
Yes.
I think you had mentioned that on one of your shows. So,
well, once they set up the so-called what they call it when you can't come out of martial laws, curfews. Yep. There you go. I'm sorry, curfews. Now, if you're on the street, you're going to get arrested. But once they get you off the street, it's wide open what they do. They can burn down a whole lot of things, and nobody knows the difference.
Nope.
So, what they have done since 1865, since we are becoming aware of these tactics, they came up with this thing called privatization. And it's worse than the regular rebellions and are the so-called race white riots, because now we have our own people agreeing to build a city up by letting privatization come in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Detroit, I'll just use one example before I go any further. Detroit was a bankrupt city. They had blasted all over the world. Detroit was bankrupt. And once they passed the bankruptcy and got the permission from the courts to be bankrupt, less than 1 month later, they had a whole new series of police cars. Nobody even discussed where that money came from. You've seen them. They got different names, and they will change. We need to look and see what they call the police department now. Is it still DPOA as we knew it to be, or is it something different? I would bet that it's under a different name.
And let me ask you something. What's the difference between the black cars and the white cars?
Well, there you go. Number one, the writing on it is different. I can tell you that. You got three sets of cards. You got the black card, the red, white, and blue, and then you got the multicolored cards with the pictures of buildings on it. That little funny looking thing, kind of small.
Well,
I think it's Chevrolet.
You might as well say four. You might as well say four because you got the black unmarked vehicles too.
Oh, yep, the unmarked vehicles. But see, the black unmarked, the black marked, the white, red, white, and blue, they were there during the bankruptcy. These new ones I'm talking about came in after bankruptcy. Now, here's the problem with privatization, and nobody talks about this. Once they set up privatization, they have these secret, let's call them compacts. I don't know what else you could call them. These secret millionaires get together and set up a compact, and they come up with X number of dollars to put a down payment, because I remember them talking about $7.9 million or some kind of $1 million, and all they did was leased the cars. Those cars are leased. Guess who makes the payments? The citizen makes the payments on the. Yes. Now, I know that's illegal. There's no it's totally illegal. And so that's why they never talk about it. They never open that can of worms, because somebody's going to realize that it's illegal. But we don't have anyone to tell it to, because when you got Joe Biden and Duggan dancing like a couple of fags on the stage last week, you got Obama passing all the goodies that Detroit's coming out of it. Then you got all these writers. I saw this writer named Jim. What was his last name? I'm looking at it. I wrote it down. Manvesness. Some kind of name, like I can't remember. He wrote a book on Detroit. He said he lived here until he was 7 years old, and he had an urge to write a book. And what he did, he was talking about how Detroit was the lifeline of the United States coming out of the 60s, when Motown, he went into Motown and all of that, Barry Gordy and all of that. The largest black middle class in the United States came out of Detroit. I don't know if you know that, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, when Coleman got in office in 72, they shut everything down because they wanted to take the city back. They used privatization, but Coleman said, no, you're not bringing that trash in here. So they had to wait until Coleman resigned, and then Dennis Archer in his campaign set up a fire sale, and all of these compacts, I'm still calling them compacts, they came in and bid it on whatever they wanted in the Detroit area, and all they had to do then was have the news media, the police department, and the schools work in unison to put the people in the mental state that we wanted that to come in, and that's what happened. Privatization is the worst. Because now you don't have an argument, because they bought off the city council, the so-called city council.
Really.
See. So, and all they have to do, they don't have a job. All they have to do was sign on every move. I think it was every 3 months. Every 3 months they had to sign on paperwork that the emergency manager had done, so that the records would show that black folks did this to Detroit, not the Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
And
then what about all the controversy with Kwame Kilpatrick, and then you had the what's her name, Kanye's wife, and you had all these people that was that a smokescreen to distract people from what was really going on? No. They had to get rid of those politicians. They could not trust everybody that got burnt and went to jail. They were blacks that couldn't be trusted. Okay. The only ones he let out were those Uncle Tom ass niggas, such as that jackleg ass preacher, Swindling Wendell, that considers himself a politician. He gets appointed all over the place. Niggas like that are free. They're all out in the street today, everywhere. Okay. But all of those that went to jail, I did not like. Probably over half of those that went to jail, I didn't vote for them, but they were politicians. And if you understand a politician, you can get them to do something for you. So what the Europeans said, we can't trust these Negroes. They surely couldn't trust Kilpatrick. He couldn't trust himself.
so ain't no telling what he allowed to do. And then the female you mentioned, the Conyers lady, Monica Conyers, you know, she was another one that you couldn't trust. But once they put them in the penitentiaries and put them in that so-called institution, they learned their lesson. I haven't heard from her.
Sam Riddle too. Sam Riddle was another one.
Sam Riddle was another. Yes. He
did some time.
So, yep. And we, as Negroes, sit back and wait on, let's say, leadership, such as the bougie Negroes, who will come out and sing the same songs that the Pickford wants them to sing, and before you know it, we are supporting whatever's on the agenda.
Yep.
And it's nothing but magic, man. We will never be free with our mentality, okay? And that's all it is. It's bad mentality. It ain't got nothing to do with nothing. When it comes to our freedom, it has nothing to do with anything other than us being ignorant and not in the know. KNOW.
Wow.
You dig it? Now, institutionalized racism is one of the worst. Because if you go all the way back into the 1865, when I went back and told you how the wars changed and the European created the new war known as the Civil War, they began to put into their municipalities, their townships, they began to put in Jim Crow rules and regulations. Were illegal to the bone. But we didn't know how to fight it because we were never taught government. We have no idea how to use the Constitution to free ourselves. And I'm talking about the state Constitution, not the federal. You dig? And so as a result, we are lost sheep in the wilderness, having no idea what to do. And all we can do is wait on these AKAs, these female Angie Negroes, and these Uncle Tom Negroes and these jackleg ass preachers. And all we have to do is wait on them to get in unison. And before you know it, we are up to the feet without a paddle to do. What is all that noise? You washing dishes? What are you doing?
No.
Man, all that noise, all I hear. What are you doing?
My bad. Moving some bags and stuff around here.
Oh, that's making a lot of noise. You pick it up on all of that stuff. But I just wanted to get you in on that because we're totally dealing with this new thing called privatization, and they have different ways that they privatize. You know. Right. Yep. And then we forget that they did a lot of buyback leases during the transition from Coleman to Duggan. If you look back through that realm of about 22, 25 years, they did a lot of, no one talks about it. No one. They don't talk about it.
And they're not going to. They're not going to either.
That's right. And when you look at those leases, it's ungodly what those leases are, the way those leases are made. And the reason that they never wanted to do a public audit was because a lot of those compact, and I don't have a better name for it, those compact agreements, a lot of those Europeans and niggers, they got niggers in there, don't forget that. They'll go to jail
always do.
because they're violating the law by setting up those buyback leases. And they do little things like they supposedly sold the zoo to the Michigan Zoology Institution. Okay, good. But why do they still call it the Detroit Zoo? You dig it?
To give the illusion that it's what it was.
But no, worse than that. The original monies that was given to the city of Detroit, they call them treasures. They call them treasures. Original treasures of Detroit. They have a lease and a will. You dig? And in those leases and wills, they put certain rules and regulations. And most of the time, it has wording in there that name Detroit has always got to be there. So since you can't sell it, so they lease it to get around it, and then they write up the agreement on the lease. The persons that buy it give the government or the officers of this agreement X number of dollars. So they'll tell you and I, well, our police department is short of, and that's what they did too. The police department is short of policemen. We had to lay off police because the money's gone. So if we sell the zoo, we're going to pick up $8.9 million so we can hire 25 new police officers or 25 new firemen. Everybody's happy. Oh, whoa. All right, well and good. We don't know where them guys are. But what they do, they'll sell it, make the changes, get the monies. They'll go ahead and use they don't even have to use the money to bring in the police because every city is under what used to be called the Glass-Steagall Act. I don't know if you ever heard that word, that law.
I've heard you talk about it.
Yep, Glass-Steagall. And then they moved it into the Blyland between Clinton and Bush. They changed it. They kicked Glass-Steagall out. They repealed that and brought in this something. I don't know what that is. But anyway, what it was a law that told the banks and the municipalities what they could and could not do. And what they never changed between the two is that thing called the CAFR. K-A-F-R. CAFR. No one wants to talk about the CAFR. Well, what does the CAFR do? The CAFR says that no transaction can ever be made if the city budget is not balanced and the funds are in the proper places in order to do what they do. So when they say that the police department is losing money, they're lying.
They're lying.
When they say they're lying through their teeth. That's right. And now it's so bad. Now here's where the problem starts. There's so much money in the CAFR that these crooks will use some of the funds as collateral to borrow real money from the banks, use the CAFR as collateral to borrow real money to do crooked things with. And nobody knows where the money's come from. And then they make you and I to raise our taxes in order to pay back the money to the CAFR. And I swear to you, the judges, the news media, and no politician is allowed to talk about it. It's the best kept secret in America, the CAFR.
Wow.
Now, why is that? You know,
they lose their job for one.
They will kill them. I would say they put a contract on them because somebody's going to jail. Because that's a huge can of worms. Huge can of worms.
Which means a lot of people would be going to jail. Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of people in high places.
Yes. And now they can do it with privatization and get away with it because nobody really realized the damage. Now, listen to this one. When you challenge the states, let's just take Michigan. Michigan used to, some of the figures, I remember the figures. They used to say it took $33,000 to house a prisoner for 1 year in the Michigan penal system. $33,000. Okay? These private compacts will come together, build a private prison, and they call them correction facilities, not a prison, it's a correction facility. And then they'll go to the state and make a bid and tell the state, we can house that same prisoner for $27,000. So here you got that crook governor and his cronies looking at that, say, hey, let's turn over X number of prisoners and test it and see how it works. So here's what they do. On every prisoner they give to the correction facility, the governor gains $6,000. Now, he hides that. Nope, he's slicker than that. He hides the 6,000 in what is known as the general fund.
The general fund, yep.
Yes, brother. They never.
Wow.
They never audit the general fund. There's no budget. It's just a play kitty that they can do anything they want. You dig it? Now, here's where another trick comes in. The facilities know that in order for them to maintain a $27,000 annual fee per inmate, their facility has to be 85% full. So they put that in the contract. Now, think about that for a minute. They tell Michigan, we will give you that $27,000, but you must give us 85% of our prisons have to be full. So let's just say 85 is 10,000 prisoners. They got to have 10,000 prisoners. If they go below 85, there will be a backlog fee back to the state. Now, what do you think? What do you think the state's gonna do?
They're gonna try to lock as many folks up as they can.
Yes, sir. Bob. Yes, sir.
All right.
That's what they do. Because they caught that one judge out in Delaware. Not only was he crooked on the bench, he owned he was in that compact that owned it was a juvenile facility, correction facility. And he was putting kids in there because they didn't do their homework. And then when the time was, yes. And now remember, once you put them in the system, under the penal system, there's a bond called the warehouse bond. Now, think about this for a minute. Once you get in the system, you know you got to obey the rules. So once you start signing paperwork, you're going to sign that warehouse bond. What do you think happens when you sign the warehouse bond? I tell you what happens. The warehouse bond goes to your SISQ account and pulls that $27,000 out of your SISQ account and pays that money up front.
Wow. Unbelievable.
It is, man.
Unbelievable.
It is. It's enough to make you want to cry. Yes.
Unbelievable.
It ain't nothing. Yes, it is. It's nothing but a game, and it only takes us to KNOW. We don't have to fight. We don't have to march. We don't have to sing. We don't have to pray. All we got to do is let people know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
If we start writing letters to the news media, they got to look into this. If enough people write, but we're so conditioned, and I'm not going to call us lazy, because we have been conditioned through these sky, what they call them? Well, yeah. Oh, I don't want to go to the church. Let's talk about that mess they put in the sky. They say that zinc,
the chemtrails and the contrails.
Yes, brother. Yes. Those things make you so crazy. Yes, it make you so crazy that you really don't want. There ain't no fight. Ain't no fight. You know, some of that came out in Baltimore when they sprayed those kids at that school. They sprayed them with that stuff, and they come out of the school throwing bricks. So I don't know how that happened. You know. But, I mean, these are things that are simple, that should be questioned. And if you are an elected official and you're going in there, I mean, you're going in to attempt to serve your peers, you can't bring this kind of stuff up. Well, we don't have people qualified to bring it up because they don't know, and most of them that want to be politicians, they don't have no idea what it means to be a politician.
Right.
They have no idea. You know. And then you turn around and put dancing in the street on the city council, and then say, well, we the black folks are so dumb they just vote on name recognition. We ain't that stupid.
Yeah.
especially when we in the middle of a war. We're in the middle of a war, calling the Secretary of Elections a crook, and we're gonna vote for dancing in the street to represent us. Come on, man. You know, and then those that have the voice don't have a voice, because when they tell them what to say, they only say what they're told to say. And then they'll quickly say, people like Ron March, all they do is just cause trouble. You know, I had that same thing happen to me less than a month ago, right over at the radio station, when two of the biggest bums in the city of Detroit, Tyrone and that somebody Chief, some nigga named Chief, got on there and told the people, don't believe Ron March, he don't know what he talking about, and blah, 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 blah. And I had only been on for a week, and I was in the middle of the seminar. I hadn't even brought a message yet. He just want to get y'all's money and put it in his pocket, you know. But I was telling them that they had to sponsor me to stay on the air, and everybody was in favor of it. And then these bums get together with some money and get on the air and waste well, they didn't waste it because they got me off the air because I didn't get enough money to stay on the air. But see, we need to work out something on how we can get back on that. We need to take that 1 hour a week and raise money so that we can move it around. Anybody can be on that just town hall meeting, and everybody paid to get that 1 hour, and we'll take turns to get on the air. We need to do that. And I may talk to some people over there, and we'll pay our way and go that route, you know. But,
interesting,
you know, so much that we need to know. And if we don't have good outlets and good information to put out there, you know, our ignorance is that's what's gonna kill us. Now, let's discuss briefly the Pope. Pope's in town. I haven't had a chance to hear him, but I've read some of his pertinent information. And most of that information, it makes sense to me because I have seen what I've read to be true. You know, for what that's worth. I've seen what I've read to be true. And that was, for example, he came here in 2013. He declared on July 1st that the Jubilee would be in place on September it was in reverse. The 13th he came, and Bob McBride, his name was, and he said on October the 13th, all corporations would write off all their debt. Now, I know that to be a fact across the world because I read articles that it was, but then all of a sudden here in the last month, they talked about Greece, they talked about Puerto Rico, scared all the people in America that they was going to lose their pensions and stuff, and then all of a sudden, they said it was all settled. How do you think they did that?
Some folks discharge.
Yes, sir. Now the Pope sends a letter of April this year, and he says in so many words, he used his, I told you to look that word up, Roman Curie. Roman Curie. Curia. You look it up, it means the legal apparatus of the Vatican, of the papal legal apparatus of the papal, meaning it's like the Supreme Court of the Vatican. They were the ones that put out that Jubilee Declaration in 2013. Then they didn't do anything. So then I got another email, and it said, and this one I got to send you, they said this time that they sent a special envoy attorney. A private attorney of the Pope was sent to the White House and met privately over an hour with Obama. Now, what do you think that was about? You still there? Thank you. I must have lost him. Yep. Yep, I lost that brother. I'll continue. If he gets back, I'll bring him in. That was Andre. What he did, he brought in a private attorney that met with Obama. In April the 1st, 2014. Now, what do you think that was about? Then, on April the 1st, there you go, April the 1st, 2015, the superior judge of Alaska put out a notice. Let me see if I can bring that up. Y'all need to write me, email me, and ask me to send you this paperwork. Notice. What did I call? What was it called? Damn. Probably I can't remember the name of it. Did I put it somewhere? Nope. It was called Notice. Here it is. Got it. Woo! Work, Ron. All right, first of all, we're talking about the Roman Curia. Curia. You need to look that up. Roman Curia. That's number one. Created the concept of legal fiction, meaning they created the corporations, legal fiction, trust, foundations, and other corporations for good reasons. They created it. However, legal fictions can also be misused by maxim of law. Those who create are responsible for their creation. So that Roman Curia created this thing called corporation, and we all know that corporations are completely out of control. So it follows that the Roman Curia is responsible for the proper functioning of all corporations worldwide. As of September 1, 2013, Pope Francis declared all corporations and corporate officials fully liable for their errors and omissions. This means you, Sears and Roebuck, General Motors. This means you. Also, by maxims of law, there is no statute of limitation on fraud. Privately owned government services, corporations, have been fraudulently passing themselves off as the government of the United States ever since 1862. The longevity of this fraud is no way embeds it with authority. It don't matter if it's 100 years. It was crooked when it started, it's crooked today. As an employee of these corporations, you have no public office and no public bond and no foreign state immunity. So your ass is hanging out. Federal law enforcement personnel, all except United States Marshals. Your status is that of a mall cop, acting outside of the mall. That's really a disgrace. Law enforcement personnel are like mall cops, outside of the mall. You have no authority on the land jurisdiction of the continental United States. You are acting under color of law when addressing citizens of continental United States, as if they were citizens of federal United States. We are citizens of the continental United States. If you threaten any living inhabitant of the continental United States with a gun, taser, or other weapons, you can be hung as an inland pirate. Wow. Help me, somebody. If you remove any livestock you can be hung as a cattle rustler. If you cause any harm, you can be sued without limit. If you wear any uniform or display any badge or use any name or office designed to deceive or project authority you do not have, you can be arrested as impersonating an officer. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, I'm telling you, we are dealing with a bunch of crooks. A bunch of crooks. Now, what I'm going to do, tomorrow I'll meet with Beverly D. And tomorrow we're going to start with this publication. The name of it is, get a pencil and paper. Tomorrow we're going to start with public notice of law enforcement, sheriffs, elected officials, and bar association members. It was signed and written in April the 5th, 2015, and it was signed by the judge. Her name is Judge Anna Marie Reisinger, Reizinger, from Alaska, Superior Court, on the 5th day of April. So tomorrow we will start right where I'm finishing today. I know Beverly D is going to love it. We need to know. Now, tonight I'm going to look at all I can, and tomorrow on what the Pope has done thus far. Because you know, number one, he's never been to Washington, D.C. Number two, he's never called America United States. He said he was coming to America, not United States. United States does not exist. So we need to look at all of that. And then I'm going to get the new email that I have that came and talked about the attorney that was sent to Obama. See, Obama's been very busy. Now, you know he went. Somebody need to look up less than 30 days Obama went to Alaska. Why did he go to Alaska? Can anyone tell me why? Can anyone tell me why? Okay? All right. So as the engineer get up here, we're going to sign off. And tomorrow we're going to get down and dirty because we're going to do the simulcast with Beverly D. And at that point, we will deal with the public notice to law enforcement, sheriffs, elected officials, and bar associations.
Front room